Hello, everybody. Welcome back to Inside the Force. Dave Cottingham here with Cody Geiler. How are you?
I'm good. How are you doing, man?
Doing good. Back at it. Lots going on this week as far as life. Got kids going back to school. You don't have kids in school yet, so
Not yet. No,
you're not
just
experiencing that.
about to be 2 years old. So yeah, daycare though. Going back to daycare next week.
Oh,
He does like
nice.
a once a week thing. So yeah.
Oh, good. Okay. I got my oldest starting middle school now, so it's she's getting up there, and all new school for her, all new people. So she's a little nervous, but gonna drop her off there tomorrow and have her tackle that. So yeah, lots going on. Got a lot going on in the Star Wars world. We're back this week talking about the latest episode of The Bad Batch, which was part one of the finale. The two-part finale is airing right now. This episode comes out on Friday. That episode is out right now, so go watch that. But we'll be talking about episode 15, Return to Camino, which was quite a return. It was. So we'll get into that. There's a bunch of rumor news out there, some casting, some things about Obi-Wan, some VR news for Tales of the Galaxy's Edge, and stuff like that. So we'll get into that. And then the topic I think I want to kind of end this episode on, which I thought of today. You know what? I'm going to save it. You guys got to stick around to the end to find out.
Tease.
That's right. Little tease. little fun little conversation Cody and I will have. So, but let's dive into first. Let's talk about the Bad Batch because it is coming to an end. Season 1 is coming to the end. We talked last week that we know that we're getting a season 2. So we know that this last episode this finale could, end on a cliffhanger. It could kind of wrap up the season. Now it's really up in the air because there is a season 2. So they have the opportunity to kind of do both. But with that set up, let's talk about episode 15, Return to Camino. Last we found at the end of episode 14, Hunter was captured by Crosshair, and the batch had to leave him behind as they were saving Gregor. Now they're trying to figure out how to get Hunter back, and Hunter is being taken as prisoner back to Camino by Crosshair. So overall, Cody, thoughts on this episode?
Overall, I liked it a lot. Two big, huge surprises. I feel like for me that I just didn't see coming, and I like it when shows like this can find even like ways to surprise you, like right up until like going into the finale. Because honestly, I just thought it was a little predictable about where they might be going with it. Where the whole Crosshair story was going, and I know that we talked a little bit about them going back to Camino and maybe some sort of like clone battle happening. I didn't expect them to go back to Camino that quickly. So it was cool to get to go there. But then the fact that Crosshair revealed that he had already taken his chip out that was the big sort of like, oh man. Because now you're like, okay, well, when did he take his chip out? And if he did, does that mean that there's no sort of getting him back? Like right. He's like seems like he's fully planted on the Empire side. So I like that shock sort of surprise, especially when they set it up with that almost like Rey Kylo throne room battle that Crosshair and Hunter and then the rest of the batch had in the training room. It felt very echoing back to earlier Bad Batch when you see them all together in that training room firing on all cylinders. It was cool to see, and you thought, oh, maybe Crosshair is gonna turn back to the good side, and then they get you with he already took his chip out. So yeah.
But do you think he's telling the truth?
He could be lying,
or he could not know.
Like his level of chip brainwashing could even be telling him that the chip's out, but it's not. Interesting. You know what was interesting is, I mean, he's been through a lot. He's had different, like, the explosion, the scarring. You never see, like, I almost expected him to turn his head when he said that and to reveal, like, a little place
Correct.
where he did. And you never see a spot where he did remove the chip.
That's right.
So, possible.
Yeah, because, you know, he doesn't have hair covering up the scar, right? So, like, typically at that point, probably if he had it removed, you know, a couple weeks before, you know, hair would have been grown back and covered up the scar like it does with all the other guys. But he's bald pretty much. So you technically should have seen a line there. Now, I didn't see it. Now, his face was kind of mangled from the explosion. So maybe it was prior to that. I don't know. But I'm leaning towards that. Part of me is leaning towards that he still has the chip in, because I agree with you. Because if he doesn't have the chip in, I don't see how he comes back.
Yeah, I mean, it was a bummer of a reveal, but it does make it a little more interesting. Of like, okay, he is making a choice of his own will.
That's
at least
right.
we assume, but he's chosen the Empire, right? And all the other Bad Batch, you know, they're obviously choosing to rebel. So
yeah, because you know,
R.I.P. to Camino. I mean, that's like.
Yeah,
I was just going to say, I mean, Camino, I didn't expect that to happen at the end there, where you just keep thinking, oh, well, we never really go back to Camino. And then it's like, oh, wow.
That's why. I think, you know, with Hunter, I don't know. I just think that the way Crosshair has, you know, Hunter was telling him that, you know, we've seen what the Empire really is, you know. But I mean, Hunter's doing what the Empire is. So it's like he knows also that what they're doing. It's not like any revelation to him. So I don't think that's enough to get him to, you know, commit back to the group. I think it was just an interesting twist, you know, that Hunter's like, no, I'm not going back to you. You need to join me. You need to come and be a brother with me and do this. And that was different. I think everybody out there expected them to remove his chip and, you know, he'd be, oh, yeah, gosh, I was screaming inside that I didn't want to do this stuff. Well, I feel like he is doing this stuff out of free will now, whether the chip is there or not. I mean, at some point, you know, this chip doesn't work anyway, or it doesn't affect what's going on anyway, because you can see all these other clones that are having a conscious now too about defecting from the Empire, right? You know, I think the chip only referred to Order 66, so that part's done, and it's been weeks now, and it's like, I don't think that the chip is even relevant anymore, even if it was. Now, his was a little more, I feel like, engineered to kind of control him a little bit, but...
Well, like when they zapped him, yeah, like what did that do? Did that make him even more compliant? Or and the whole fact of Order 66, there was a portion, at least especially in the beginning episodes, where traitors of the Order, right? Like people like the Bad Batch who were traitors were also affected by Order 66. So, yeah, I don't know. You kind of wonder, like, is Order 66 still... Is their chip still activating to people who are traitors to the Empire? I don't know.
Yeah. I don't know. I don't think there was... What do you think about Omega? I mean, I don't think there was that big anymore, you know, a reveal yet with her. We found out where she was engineered, basically, and that she was engineered, it seems, sooner or earlier than the Bad Batch. She was definitely part of the what we call first generation, which if she was manufactured with Boba, basically Boba and then her, you know, Alpha and then Omega. So she was pretty much one of the first, and then she was one of only two non-enhanced or
Accelerated.
Basically, what do you call it? Just a pure clone, a pure clone of Jango, although altered obviously for her gender. So, I think a lot of people expected some kind of different take or reveal of her or some secret. I actually don't know if there's anything there anymore. Did you ever have that?
I mean, it definitely feels like they put a pin in it or have completely explained her lineage or background. I mean, I thought that when they talked about, when they talked about Alpha, when they talked about Boba and the fact that she was an unaltered, I thought they had already said that she was an unaltered clone.
Yeah.
I was getting the feeling that, okay, she is older than these other clones, but, she's only 10 years old, but these other clones are all younger than 10. They just grow at such an accelerated rate.
Correct.
Yeah. So I thought maybe the whole, revelation is that she may be the closest thing besides Boba to Jango, right? Like has all of his genetic material, minus the fact that, the XY chromosome portion of it all. But
yeah.
I mean, I guess it's more interesting maybe to think about where Omega could go, to have all of those different traits that the different Bad Batch members have, right? Like, does she have the senses that Hunter has, and can she become a marksman like Crosshair, and all these different things that maybe Jango sort of embodied, but they only were able to pull one trait into each of the Bad Batch members.
Right. Yeah, I don't know. That's a good point. I felt like there was going to be just more there, but honestly, I don't. And I'm not sure I'm going to miss it. I don't think it is relevant necessarily. I think if this is if that's all we know about her being is just an unaltered, female clone of Jango, I think that's enough. And I think it raises pretty good anticipation a little bit of, Boba Fett finding out that there's actually basically a sister almost in a sense out there. And the wonder if they're ever gonna cross paths eventually, which I kind of think they will in the series at some point. But anyway, what do you think about this ending? How do you think this season ends? Going into this last episode.
Yeah, I mean, we talked a little bit about maybe last week about some thoughts and predictions, and we wondered and speculated who might survive, who might not survive, and I'm kind of feeling Crosshair really, if he's not lying, if he took his chip out, is there no hope for him? Which feels like a really low place to be. It kind of feels a little bit counter to the traditional Star Wars themes, but it makes me wonder, is Crosshair going to make it out, right?
Yeah.
The Empire doesn't even really like clones, and it was shown in this that, what was it, one of the other sort of stormtrooper or elite members of the same squad that Crosshair's on in the Empire mentioned that he lost control of the situation, right? And you already know that Rampart and Tarkin, they don't like the clone program at all. So not only from the fact that the Bad Batch might have to do something to take out Crosshair, even the Empire, the side he's on, doesn't really have a place for him anymore.
Right.
I don't know. I'm definitely concerned.
But he's also unconscious right now too, so it's
yeah.
Does he wake up? I'm assuming he has to wake up while they're trying to. Do you think I was speculating on the Mandalore podcast that will this entire episode be them trying to escape and get off Camino? How soon do you think? I said probably within the first act they'll get off world somehow, and I think the rest of the episode is going to be centered around can Crosshair be convinced to come back, or is there another? I don't know. I don't know what. I don't know how. I think it's all about trying to get Crosshair to come back. If not, then it's. Obviously I don't think the Batch would kill him. I think that it could be that they walk away enemies, like he's talking about.
Yeah, I think that's likely. I feel like I would. I don't know. I would be a little bummed if Crosshair isn't able to be redeemed and just becomes the villain of the whole series.
Yeah.
And I don't really know. I can't quite put my finger on why. Maybe because I didn't expect him to be a continued adversary.
Yeah.
I would like to see they get off pretty quickly, and then somehow, probably Crosshair at first, or somebody within the Empire realizes that the Bad Batch survived, and it now has to become we got to pull in the big guns to take care of the Bad Batch. And I don't know what the big guns are. I don't know if somebody like a Vader gets involved or what they do. They wouldn't have, I don't know where the Inquisitors would be at this point, but they wouldn't call in Inquisitors for the Bad Batch, I don't think. But I would love to see the very end of this episode just open up the story just a little bit more beyond the Batch, right?
Yeah.
Like they obviously get off Camino, they get off world. Probably one more skirmish with Crosshair, like you mentioned, whether that's isolated or involved with the Empire. And then some sort of resolution that probably has them meeting up with Rex, figuring out what Rex was involved in.
Yeah.
I think that would be... And I don't think we picked up on the clones that also refused and were imprisoned. So aren't there still... there's two questions I have. That group of clones that was in prison, that was already shown to either not use their chips malfunctioned or something,
right,
or resist, and then all the other clones that were on Camino, because they had a small group of clones, like those younger clones that are being taken off. But
right.
Where are all the other clones? Did they just take them in Star Destroyers and they're just sort of hey, we're going to use them as soldiers and infantry until they're phased out and not create any more? But I was really surprised that there wasn't this moment where they get back to Camino and they're we got to save as many clones as possible.
Yeah.
I would almost like to see that if it were possible. Because we got Gregor, we got all these different clones coming in, and I feel like beyond Crosshair, the Bad Batch would want to save as many of their brothers as possible.
Yeah, I get that. I mean, they definitely consider them regs or whatever, right? Not. But I do think there is some kind of compassion there that they would feel if they knew that the clones were getting not only if they found out the cloning wasn't going to continue. But the fact that if these clones were being, destroyed in a sense, would they keep them in rotation until they just died out? I guess, but it sounds like they're just trying to wipe this whole system out, and who knows where they're taking them. That's a good point. There could be some kind of rescue, but I don't know if that would be enough. And I think that'd be too big of a story for this episode. Could be kind of a season 2 thing where they're going after to figure out where they're taking the clones and they want to free them. And maybe then there is this big kind of civil war, kind of clone war kind of thing with the clones and the stormtroopers. I don't know. It could be. I actually anticipated something like that happening on Camino once they found out that, they were getting once the Kaminoans thought they were getting disposed of. That would have been a cool thing. I think someone brought it up on the other show, but that was something that happened in one of the Battlefront games. I think that there was a Battle of Camino where the clones kind of revolted and fought against the Empire. So That would have been cool to see something like that. It could still happen, just not on Camino now, because like you said, Camino is getting destroyed. So
yeah.
Anyway, I just think we'll talk about it next week when the finale happens. But really, I'm actually really happy with what we've gotten this season out of this, even though it was a couple throwaway episodes, I feel like. But overall, I think this is it's going to be a pretty dramatic ending, I think.
Well, I trust them to stick the landing, right? Like they've proven time and time again with these animated shows specifically that they can. So I'm
very good point.
Looking forward to it. Do we know a runtime? Is it going to be very similar?
I don't. I think it's probably only going to be 30 minutes, but
okay.
I wouldn't be surprised if it was longer, to kind of wrap it up. But I would guess it would be probably 30 minutes. This last one was a little bit longer than, they've roughly been about 24, 25. This one was, I think, 28, 29 maybe. So it could be about that. I think that's what I'm thinking, but I'm with you. I think it'd be nice to be a lot longer. Okay, so Bad Batch, yeah. Last episode is out there right now, season finale. Go watch that. Okay, so before I get into kind of the rumor parts, something that is definitely confirmed by Lucasfilm is the expansion of the VR game Star Wars Tales from the Galaxy's Edge. Now, I don't think, Cody, you have played that yet. But
no, I haven't. I'm not as big into the VR stuff, but I know you are.
Yes. I have played it, and I knew there was going to be an expansion. It's even in the game already. They talked about it. They call it Part 2, but they've actually got a name for it now. There's a little teaser trailer out there for it. It's called Last Call, and it seems like you're Doc Ondor, who runs his antiquities, his shop of antiquities at Galaxy's Edge there on Batuu. He sends you on a mission to basically the headline says something like Indiana Jones meets Star Wars. So you're basically, I think you're a separate character now, and you're basically hunting down these treasures pieces that Doc Ondor wants you to get back to him. So seems pretty cool. The first part, like I said, is pretty good. This part coming later this fall. I will be getting it, of course, and playing it. It's pretty neat. You need to come and check this out, Cody. It's actually really neat.
Yeah, no, I definitely want to. I don't have the VR set, so I haven't really explored much of it. But yeah, I'm into like all Star Wars games, so I just want there to be. Yeah, I'm glad they're coming out with games in the meantime, because there's a bit of a games drought. Other than that,
yes.
So yeah.
Yeah. So
hopefully a lot more to come.
Hopefully, yeah. So Last Call, it's and it does say it's the final installment of the this Galaxy's Edge game, Tales from the Galaxy's Edge game. So there's an article on StarWars.com. You can kind of read about it a little bit, watch that little teaser for it. Again, just coming this fall, but it says get ready for Indiana Jones meets Star Wars. So yeah, pretty cool.
2 incredible movies, so it's got to be good,
Yes. Okay, so you actually reminded me of an article or something I read. You're talking about games. I think I think there's some kind of convention going on or something that EA is at, because I read something where EA had talked about that they are planning to invest more into the Jedi Fallen Order series. Now, we kind of knew that. I think we anticipated that there would be a sequel at some point, but it sounds like, according to that kind of statement, it sounds like this is going to be a much grander franchise, very similar to, I would say, like Assassin's Creed, or, what else? Like the Batman Arkham games or something like that. Something that's like just new versions of it constantly coming out. Do you get that sense at all? Did you hear about that?
I did, yeah. I don't know if it was a earnings call because I know they had
I think
a
it was an earnings
conference,
call. You're right.
like a EA Play conference. I think that was end of July, and they had announced ahead of time, and it was kind of a bummer. I don't think we talked much about it, that they weren't going to talk about a Fallen Order sequel. So a lot of people, myself included, were bummed because I love Fallen Order. I was hoping to hear more. I'm sure, like all the games and things, it's potentially been delayed.
Yeah.
I'm sure they're working on it. Obviously, it was successful, but a lot of games have been delayed from the pandemic because developers have had to work from home and stuff last year, and then probably some into this year too. So, but yeah, no, I think. I mean, we've speculated a little bit about it, but I think the Star Wars Jedi : could be the name of the franchise, right? And it was Star Wars Jedi Fallen Order. Now, I assume we're actually getting a sequel to Fallen Order with Cal Kestis.
Yes.
But they could always go Star Wars Jedi Knight of the Old Republic or whatever, fill in the blank with whatever Jedi era you want to see.
Right.
And I would definitely be down for that. I mean, I got my
Yes.
poster back there.
Yes. Yeah, I'm with you on that. I think that it doesn't always have to be Cal that's in this game. I think it would actually be better if it jumped. I just get the feeling that this is going to end up being like the next kind of Assassin's Creed franchise where you've got Assassin's Creed, which is like, 1, Assassin's Creed 2, Assassin's Creed 3 that kind of follows the linear timeline and storyline of the grander storyline. But then you have these, side games like Brotherhood and Valhalla and Black Flag, I think was one of them, and stuff like that aren't necessarily main storyline, but they're in the world of Assassin's Creed. So you definitely could do that. You could continue Cal's story a little bit, but then also have these Star Wars Jedi games that are in different eras and have a different follow. I think that's a brilliant idea. I think why you would make a killing on every one of those games you put out there.
Oh yeah, I mean Star Wars Jedi High Republic.
Yes,
basically take every era that they've made in Star Wars and give us a game with a potentially brand new Jedi set in that time period. You could go to the prequel, pre-Episode 1, stuff that doesn't interfere with Anakin's journey and stuff like that.
Absolutely,
and I think it would be super successful.
Yes, I think it absolutely would be. And then go forward in time to Rey's Academy, right?
That'd be awesome.
People she's training, gosh, yeah. So
you get to play as one of her Padawans or something.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah. So anyway, that's. I think that's going to be a long series for them. I think that's going to do well for them. So that's the gaming side. Okay, so three quick bits of news that we'll just kind of talk about a little bit. Nothing too concrete in them. Apparently, season 3 of Mandalorian is about to start shooting. Apparently, Giancarlo Esposito kind of talked about it a little bit, that he's gearing up and getting ready to shoot. I don't think that's anything that's breaking. I think everybody expected that to be happening. In fact, a lot of people already thought it was happening. But that season 3 will not be shooting until right now, late summer, early fall. So obviously, probably not going to hit Disney Plus until sometime late next year. Probably around the same time it normally would, like in October or November. But I don't think there's anything surprising there.
Yeah, no, I mean, the only surprise that I think we already all figured out was a lot of us assumed it was going to shoot right after Book of Boba Fett. And that didn't happen. Yes. And don't know why. Maybe it was that production schedule. Part of it, some people may know Pedro Pascal is in an HBO show that actually has been shooting.
Oh, right.
So they might start Mando season 3 without Pedro for a little bit, depending on how much helmet versus non-helmet stuff he's doing.
Yeah.
But yeah, no, not a big surprise, but and I'll be super interested to see when they release, like if they talk about dates or, when Obi-Wan Andor Mando season 3, like I assume Mando season 3 will be after all of those in the pipeline, but who knows how they're gonna fast track what.
Yeah. Again, it comes down to also for me, like what is going to be revealed at Celebration, in May, right? So Book of Boba Fett will be wrapped, I'm assuming, sometime in January, probably February, late February, mid to late February. So you got March, April, and then Celebrations in May. So would another series start before Celebration, or would they actually hold until Celebration to actually start promoting some of these, because I think in my opinion, you've got Andor that's going to come out first. You've got, I honestly think, I don't know if Obi-Wan comes out right away or the second season of Bad Batch comes out for, next. Because if Andor comes out after Book of Boba Fett, let's just say Andor comes out in March, right? Then you're definitely not, you're definitely running that until I think, I can't remember how many episodes they talked about that being. Like,
well,
I think it was a lot, right? I think it was like 10 to 12 episodes.
Yeah.
So that's 3 months. So you're talking March, April, May, and then you're already beyond what Bad Batch debuted, right? Debuted May 4th this year. So, they would I feel like they would put it out next summer as well. So I think you almost get Bad Batch, and then you get Obi-Wan, and then you get Mandalorian. That's kind of what I'm thinking that's going to happen.
Yeah, that'd be
next
interesting to see if they. I assume they're not going to overlap their own shows for Star Wars, like even animated. That's going to have to run for potentially 16
seasons,
weeks.
16 weeks, yeah.
Yeah, which fills up a good bit of the calendar year. I mean, we already talked about. You total up all these shows coming in 2022. You've got, assuming 8 Mando season 3. I don't know if it's been confirmed 6 or 8 Obi-Wan.
Yeah, I think it was 4 to 6. Yeah.
Yeah, I mean you've got a pretty good chunk of the year.
Yeah. I think it's almost every week. Yeah,
so it's getting close to what Marvel's doing, which is great.
Yeah.
But yeah, the time of year to what they want to push, I think is super interesting, at least to me. Like that May 4th, that March slot, spring. I do agree. I think Andor will be done first because it was shooting first.
Yeah.
I don't know which one has a bigger post lift or workload. But then May 4th, you have to assume they want something really big happening.
Mm-hmm.
So is that going to be the finale of Andor?
Yeah.
And then, I don't know. Like, is Obi-Wan better as a fall show because fall is like the prime time for good television?
Yeah. That's what I think. I think you got Book of Boba Fett debuting in December. I think that wraps the end of February. I think you got Andor starting sometime in March, probably ends right around Celebration. And then I think you go into second season of Bad Batch, just like we did now, run through the mid to end of August. And I think September you got Obi-Wan starting. Maybe October you got Obi-Wan, and then you got November, you got late November or something like that, you got season 3 of Mandalorian. I think that's the way it's rolling. So then, and just really quick, it would then push Ahsoka into 2023. It would push what's expected to shoot next year at the Acolyte into 2023. And then whether or not, I think Andor, it was rumored that Andor is going to be actually a seasonal show, not just a one-off, because Obi-Wan's just a one-off. So Andor may come out again in 2023, and then you've got this third season of Bad Batch possibly. So then another Mandalorian episode. I don't see Mandalorian probably won't come in 2023 if Ahsoka serves as that 3.5 season, right? So I mean, you've got the shows there, you got the content, and whether or not these other ones are going to get made at all, Lando or Rangers is done, so that's not going to happen. I can't remember any the other ones, but there's definitely 2 or 3 shows a season. It's a year. It sounds like that's going to be hitting. So anyway, exciting. I mean, exciting. Almost every week of the year, it's like Star Wars.
2020 is going to be a big Star Wars year.
2022.
Yeah, next year.
Yeah, and we're still not getting a movie that year, right? It's 2023.
2023.
Yeah, so
and all those shows you mentioned will probably go right up until the movie. Yep. And then they'll probably stop all the shows the week before that movie comes out so that it can be the only thing happening.
That's right. Yep. So speaking of the shows real fast, Ahsoka, again, Ahsoka casting rumor. I think everybody expected this, but there is a rumor out there. I think in the Hollywood Reporter it came out that they are looking for a live-action Sabine, live-action a person to play that live-action version. I don't think that's any surprise. Cody?
Yeah, honestly thought it was already rumored. I guess a lot of us had wrongly speculated that Sasha Banks was going to play her in season 2 of Mandalorian. Right. That wasn't the case. But it does look like they're probably trying to find another actor, maybe a higher profile actor. I mean, it's definitely worth noting that they're not using Tia Sakar unless she's just in auditions up against other actresses. But yeah, I mean, I think it makes sense. I mean, you got Rosario Dawson, phenomenal actress. You know, she did great as Ahsoka. She's got a great resume already. I think they might go that route. I mean, they cast the dude who played, supposedly cast the dude who played Aladdin as Ezra. Yes. So, I think they're going after some maybe slightly higher profile live action actors.
Yeah. Yeah, it's unfortunate. Tia Sakar, I think, would do a great job. I think she does look the part. But it's understandable if they want to get, like you said, a kind of a bigger name. But that's a little unfortunate. That I think she would have done well. I just I think Katie Sackhoff has kind of set that bar too, right? I mean, you can do that if you're able to. I mean, she's a pretty decent sized name, especially in the TV world. But it works so well because it obviously sounds exactly like Bo-Katan, and Tia would obviously sound like Sabine, so that would be pretty neat to witness. So anyway, we'll keep an eye on that. The Obi-Wan, another bit of rumor news is Obi-Wan Kenobi. There was just an interview with the woman. We don't know who she's playing, but the actress that was in Game of Thrones, from Game of Thrones, but Indira Varma, who is cast in Obi-Wan right now, she was doing an interview, and she just basically said this, which I thought caught some attention. She said, quote, "It's such a beast, like an octopus that needs wrangling, but I'm having a brilliant time. Obviously, I can't say anything about it, but director Deborah Cho and Ewan McGregor on the acting side have somehow made it feel like an independent movie. Everyone has input. There are no fraying tempers." And then she went on to say, "It's all new to me and really embarrassing." This is about her background with Star Wars. "It's all new to me and really embarrassing. I keep getting called out on stuff, but I did play Princess Leia in the playground when I was 6 without having seen it. I had long plaits so I could do the hair. I've watched all the old ones now, but I wouldn't say I'm up to speed. I'm still not sure what order they all go in." So not really knowing the background of Obi-Wan necessarily, but if this picture holds true, which I don't know if you've seen this, Cody, there's a picture of her. It looks like she's in Empire officer clothing. Have you seen that?
I've seen the set photo. And yeah, it's interesting. For some reason, I don't know why, and none of the interviews or none of the announcements made it. See, I assume she would have like a role that would be, well, she talks about working with Ewan, right?
Yeah.
So she has scenes with Obi-Wan. I guess that is revealed. So that's sort of a clue. I had thought about her being a character that somehow has a connection with Obi-Wan. So I hadn't originally thought of her as an Imperial. But she did play such a good. She was like a quasi villain, right? She, all the characters on Game of Thrones, none of them are really good necessarily,
Right.
but she does play that sort of bad role in a way that is compelling. So it makes sense to have her as a Imperial. Is she British?
She is. I don't know.
Okay.
I don't know. But she, it's interesting that she says that, about making it feel like an independent movie. Now, I think, independent movies, I think a lot of people may just right away go to, oh, that means it's low budget. Most independent movies don't really have that big of a budget, right? So, but I think what she's saying is that it's a beast, right? I mean, it's Star Wars. It's such a massive production, all hundreds and hundreds of people on set, and I mean, they're obviously filming this thing like a movie. It's just it's like a 6-hour movie basically. So, but I think what she's getting at, what she's meaning, is that it's making it feel small. Deborah and Ewan are making it feel like an intimate set, meaning that on independent films, directors, because they're not all directors are like this, so I don't want to stereotype them, but directors that work for big studios and have big names, they tend to have a command on the set that's like, it's my vision, my way. I'm doing it this way, no matter what anybody says. Right? You as the actor, Cody, you just say your lines the way I want you to say it, and let's get it done. Whereas usually in the independent world, and what I mean by that is the guys like Kevin Smith that started out independent, they will lean heavily on actors for input, and they'll actually get more guidance from the DP on what's the best shot, and the lighting crew to light it better. It's just, there's so much more that the director, I think, at that point kind of lets you feel more part of the movie than just the role you're playing. So to me, that's what she meant by that.
Yeah, I think you're right. I mean, this is not low budget at all.
No.
Like you said, this is probably at least $10 million an episode, if not more.
Yeah.
Especially if there's less episodes, then it's more than $10 million. But that being said, it is great to hear an actress that, has done larger, other big budget things. Especially if they're working in the volume for some stuff, it can probably be intimidating, right?
Mm-hmm,
when you hear about and see behind the scenes from the prequels, right? Like Ewan was just on these blue screen, green screens, right?
Yeah.
Makes it hard to probably get into that character and into that acting zone. So it sounds like both Deborah and Ewan have made it this more intimate, like you mentioned, experience where she's giving input as an actress, even as somebody who isn't well versed in the Star Wars world, which I think means that the character development and the emotion may be the things that come out of this, which I mean is super exciting to hear, and hopefully it translates to the screen.
100%, yeah. So yeah, I'll keep saying it. This show, Obi-Wan, is top of my list right now. I cannot. That's the most anticipated thing I can see right now. It's cannot wait for this. Okay, so that's it with the news. Let's move on to our topic here in a second. Just wanted to run down some release schedules for some publications. Of course, I keep mentioning the novels. I will say I forgot to put this on the list before, but there is an audio drama that's actually getting released this month at the end of August. It's from the High Republic side. It's called Tempest Runner. It's an audio drama that's exclusively going to be released through your audiobook sites. So that comes out August 31st. So go check that out. You've got Ronin, which is a Star Wars Vision novel, still coming out October 12th. Queen's Hope, the third book in the E.K. Johnson series, that's November 2nd, and the third Thrawn Ascendancy book, Lesser Evil, will be out November 16th. Comics, got all kinds of War of the Bounty Hunter still coming out there, but you also have a lot of High Republic stuff. So out today, which is August 11th, the day we're recording this, you've got a one-shot High Republic comic called The Monster of Temple Peak. You've got High Republic number 8. And then, of course, throughout the month, you've got War of the Bounty Hunters, Star Wars, Dr. Aphra, Vader, they're all tied into War of the Bounty Hunters. War of the Bounty Hunters number 3. No. War of the Bounty Hunters number 3. So the main book in that series is actually coming out. It came out today also. Sorry. August 11th. Today's August 11th. So if War of the Bounty Hunters number 3 is out, I'm gonna actually go get that and read that because I'm keeping up with that series actually right now. All right, so let's get into this topic real fast. So I'm excited to really just hit about this a little bit, not spend too much time on it, but I thought it was interesting. Thought I had today as I was watching Disney Plus and the release of Marvel Cinematic Universe's What Ifs animated series. So if you guys didn't know that dropped today. And we had talked about it. I think they're releasing, Disney Plus is releasing technically almost all their new series is now on Wednesdays. So this debuted, Loki kind of started that trend. So What If landed today, and the first episode centered around not Captain America, but what if Peggy Carter made a different choice, and which led her down to become the super soldier that we see that is Steve Rogers. Instead is Peggy Carter, and she becomes Captain Carter, wielding the shield and everything like that. So it just made me think, like, what would happen if we talked about some of these what ifs in the Star Wars universe? Not that there's a multiverse. I think that's a whole separate conversation, whether or not we want there would be a multiverse in Star Wars. That sounds a little bit more of a deeper debate. I just wanted to kind of spitball with you, Cody, on some of these what ifs that could potentially happen. That I don't know, that would change the way we know Star Wars right now, and maybe for the better. Who knows? And I thought we'd do this maybe in basically 3 parts and look at each era of trilogy. So let's look at the prequels right now, 1, 2, and 3. Is there a what if? What's a what if scenario in the prequels that I don't know would be cool to experience or be cool to talk about?
Yeah, I made a little list of a few what ifs when you posed the question earlier before recording. So what if Star Wars did what if? So I guess the biggest one, and you may have this one in mind too, for the prequel, I didn't have too many, but what if Qui-Gon survived the duel with Darth Maul?
That's really good, yep.
Now, some of these what ifs may make all the other movies sort of like null and void. That maybe being one of them, but I think it is super interesting, the whole Qui-Gon Anakin dynamic. Obviously he had Obi-Wan as a master, but a lot of us think about and assume that if Qui-Gon was there, any of Anakin's struggles with the rest of the council, Qui-Gon would have been a great sounding board because he also had those struggles, right? He wasn't, he was a master, but he wasn't necessarily like in the in crowd of the council, I guess, if you think about, like, he had his own issues. And, Anakin, needed that father figure. And Obi-Wan filled that void, but he was also very close in age. So Obi-Wan saw him as more of a brother, maybe like an older brother to Anakin. Yeah. And I think Qui-Gon, would have been able to fill that role. And may have kept Anakin from going to the dark side. I mean, that's a huge what if, right? Like, yes, I don't know if he could have, if one person could have stopped that from happening, but if one person could, I think it would have been Qui-Gon.
Yeah, that's a massive one, because I think I did think about that a little bit, because when you watch Disney Gallery, and there's that big rant that Dave Filoni went on about Duel of the Fates. I mean, that's what the Duel of the Fates was. That it wasn't the fate of Qui-Gon and Obi-Wan in that battle. It was the fate of Anakin. And if Qui-Gon would have won or survived, he would have been that father figure that Anakin needed at the time. Obi-Wan ended up being more of a brother and not a father. And Qui-Gon would have changed the fate of Anakin for sure. So that probably brings up that could I'll just throw out a scenario that could happen. That could mean that maybe Obi-Wan could end up being like the Vader. Like what would have done to Obi-Wan that Qui-Gon tended to gravitate towards Anakin, and maybe it was too soon for Obi-Wan to become a Jedi, right? And he would have had some feelings, maybe some, I don't know, maybe
that's a good what if role reversal right there.
Totally.
Kind of like if Obi-Wan went dark side and Anakin was on the Anakin had the high ground.
Exactly. Yeah. So my big what if from the prequels, and I think I constantly think to myself that if there was one thing I wish George would have done differently about the prequels, it would have been this. I just think, what if they faked Padme's death and that she didn't die? Because think about now what we know of Vader, how much he's trying to bring back Padme. I mean, there's all these stories in the comics and the VR game where he basically is trying to reconnect with Padme. So he doesn't forget about her. And then there's this issue in one of the comics that takes place between episode 4 and 5, because he goes and searches, because once he finds out that, Luke's his son and there's a Skywalker out there, and he's realizing that they faked the baby's death, right? The birth. He goes searching for answers to who could have faked the death and been responsible. And he comes face to face with Sabe, which is one of her handmaidens. Of course, Sabe looked pretty much exactly like Padme, right? So in the comic, when he sees her, he says Padme. Like, he's like, Padme? And can you imagine if Padme was actually alive still, though?
Wow.
Like, truly alive, and truly the one that started, because I wanted her to be the one that started the rebellion. Because what if she started the rebellion, been building this alliance, these 19 years, and Vader finds out that that's what he's fighting against? Would that be enough to actually convince him to get redeemed? I don't, I think that's a powerful thing right there.
Yeah, I mean, that would be she would fill a lot of that same, you almost kind of a Bail Organa / Mon Mothma role right there. Like, she would be that. There's a couple huge ramifications that has. Like, does she parent Leia and Luke?
Right.
Do they still have to put them up for safety reasons? Does she only stay? Like, does she go to Alderaan with Leia or something? Like, it kind of makes you wonder what would have happened there. And then that also changes a lot of the original trilogy. But you think a lot about that Return of the Jedi moment, and what would that moment of love have been like that we got from Luke? Had Padme have shown up or been there, would it have maybe had an even larger effect on Vader, almost kind of stopping him in his tracks, probably? Or would he have been redeemed sooner? A lot of different questions come up.
Lots.
Yeah, that's a good one.
Yeah, that's a good one.
That's interesting. I like that a lot.
All right, so what about the original trilogy? Any things different? Now, you can say because of the Qui-Gon impact, this, whatever, or just take it as if the prequels happened the way it happened, and we move on to the original side.
Yeah, man, there is a lot of. So there's a couple I thought of.
It could be obviously any era around there, but if you had something sooner.
Yeah, I almost kind of want to dive into one that's a little bit. So there's two that I have, and maybe we'll see what you end up talking about if there's overlap. But I'll go with maybe one that's a little more interesting. So I was thinking a little bit about this, and I was like, well, aside from just like role reversal, right? Like we talked about Obi-Wan, Anakin, like simple swaps like that. What if like the entire main characters were made up of a different team, right? Like, what if the Ghost Crew was responsible for stopping the Empire, taking down the Death Star? Like if so, you kind of almost have to go a little bit pre-original trilogy to change this. What if Ezra doesn't leave? Maybe Kanan survives, but maybe he doesn't. Still, maybe things happen as normal, and you've got Hera, Ezra, and Zeb and Chopper, and they're like your main trio, or so to speak. It's definitely a wild sort of would be an alternate timeline thing, but I thought about that as like that would be a huge shift. And a lot of those characters wear some of the same hats that Luke, Leia, and Han did.
That's interesting. Yeah, that's definitely. I think there's a lot there because I feel like in the original script of what George wrote, which was the Star Wars, when there was like Star Killer, and I feel like there was a lot of that, which was a lot more of a group. I mean, it was. There is actually a comic series that they made a comic out of that script, and I remember reading that. And I remember reading, I feel like there was more of a kind of a camaraderie of the group together, before there was Han and Chewie and all this stuff like that. So that's pretty interesting to think that they're now obviously, and then Kanan, would have been the Jedi side of that thing. So that's pretty good. I mean, they obviously have become a major part of this timeline, coming in later and all this, which is pretty crazy. So, I think mine was one. I think you actually had this idea prior. Mine was one that's been somewhat explored and somewhat brought up in A Certain Point of View novel that came out. This was a brief based on a brief conversation that Obi-Wan and Yoda had, but basically, what if Obi-Wan trained Leia instead of Luke? Right? And I think, and according to this novel, from a certain point of view, that is actually what Yoda wanted. Yoda, obviously, from the movies, you can tell he thought Luke was not into it. He was too looking to the future kind of thing. And Leia was the one that's been in the fight ever since she was young.
Since she was 6 years old?
But very interesting to know whether or not, if her skills were heightened as far as her Jedi skills throughout her teen years, or if she even just started getting trained when she was just as old as Luke, if that would have impacted how the rebellion was, having a Jedi basically in the rebellion already, right? I mean,
I think it's a great what if. I like this one a lot. I was hoping you'd mention this or that we would talk about it, because I think it's one of maybe the biggest sort of ones to think about. It unfortunately kind of would sideline Luke. I don't know if he would still be brought into the fold, I guess at some point, because she would maybe figure out that she has a brother with her Force abilities or something. But yeah, if Obi-Wan trains her or brings her along in some capacity, I mean, yeah, you wonder, she probably faces off with Vader much sooner than Luke did, just because of her involvement with the rebellion, right? She would be in a lot more skirmishes and would have, probably it would have been something like Episode 4 could have even started with a fight between Jedi Leia and Vader.
That's right.
Yes. And she doesn't know, and he doesn't know that she's his son, and you still get some of those same reveal beats, so it feels very much like the storyline we got. But you do wonder, okay, once she either does realize or is told, Luke, like Yoda talked about, Luke had a lot of that, like looking to the future, a lot of that emotional attachment they say is kind of not great with Jedi. But it proved that the love he had and the attachments he had overcame the dark side at the end, right?
Right.
So you wonder, like, would Leia have that? Leia had a very different temperament than Luke, right? Like, she still had compassion, of course, for everybody that was close to her, but would she have seen Vader, for the monster he became? And would she have still had compassion if she learned that he was her father?
Right.
Or would she have had a little bit more, I don't know, like she has a little more fire in her,
yes,
just naturally. So I don't know, that has me wondering, like, would she have shown compassion for Vader, or would she have wanted to destroy him because he was a monster and had destroyed, potentially the Empire destroys Alderaan, say the same things happen? Would that have driven her as a Jedi to a darker place? I don't know.
Yeah, I think the way she grew up in the political world with Bail, still, like, if she would have still lived that life and been trained, I agree with you. It's hard to say she would. Just because of the way she is, I don't think she would have. But would the Jedi training make her be more compassionate, for things like that? And then, of course, if she found out the way Luke did, which is basically Obi-Wan coming in as a Force ghost and saying, yes, he's your father, and he was this, and he fell, and, I don't know. Once you hear that story, like Luke, it's like, no matter what. See, the problem is, though, Luke didn't really have a father figure. Like, Bail was Leia's father in a sense, right? Owen was his uncle, right? So he kind of had that. I feel like he developed that compassion because he didn't have a father, and it's his father. I'm not going to kill my father. Leia's like, I mean, yeah, he's not my father. Bail's my father. So you're a killer.
Maybe it would have taken her meeting Luke to develop some of that and have a different outlook on, what potentially could have happened with her and Vader.
Yep.
That's a great point, though. Her connection with Bail would have definitely been something to where she probably wouldn't have the same struggle that Luke had.
Yes. Right.
Yeah.
One other quick side one that I thought of too was, what if, because this kind of makes me a little bit question, why didn't this happen? Because Vader didn't know there were twins, right? I mean, he didn't know that she had twins. I mean, in fact, no one did except Yoda, Obi-Wan, and Bail. Why didn't Bail take both kids? Like, what if he would have raised both of them?
Ooh.
Right? Like, what if they both would have come up the same way in that political world, and knowing that there was a rebellion, and, would that have made Luke even stronger as far as, I don't know, how would it have changed Luke? So basically that's like, what if Bail raised both of them? And I don't know. I don't think you would lose anything with that. I don't
like Luke probably would have been a pilot already.
Oh,
and
yeah.
Probably would have been contributing in the rebellion the way that Leia was, maybe politically and whatnot. Like, Luke would have been, he would have been on his way to becoming like Poe Dameron. He wouldn't be there yet, but he would have been like, maybe more like a Kaz type pilot.
Yep.
And then if Obi-Wan still gets the same message from R2.
Yeah, because then that means both of them heading to Obi-Wan then at that point?
And then does he train them both at the same time? That's an interesting what if, because then it opens up to having,
because they would know that they're brother and sister technically, right? They were both just would have been known to be adopted.
Yeah.
To know that they were brother and sister. I like that one a lot, actually. Okay, so now let's look at the sequel trilogy, right? I mean, I know a lot. I think a lot of people would say they'd like to do some what ifs on this, but it is what it is, and I think a lot of people do appreciate these films. Yeah. So I don't know. What would you say would be one of yours? Have you thought of on the sequel side?
Yeah, on the sequel side, maybe I mean I do have a few, and I'm just looking to maybe pick one out on the list. 'Cause there's some interesting ones.
Yeah.
I guess the biggest and the one just because I've always been a Luke fan. Um, it's not a what if Luke didn't drink the green milk. That's not my what if. What if Luke left Octo with Rey in the Last
Yeah.
Jedi?
Mm-hmm.
I mean, you could spin that what if into a few different variables of like, what if he just trained her non-reluctantly? I'm still fine with some of the reluctance. That lines up a lot with like what Yoda did. But what if he chooses to leave Octo with Rey? Changes everything, probably. But my thing that I wanted to maybe see is not just Luke being Luke, right? That's a lot of discourse and things that we've talked about and heard people talk about, but more so Master Padawan relationship and Rey actually learning from Luke in the moment, some of the ways that Anakin learned from Obi-Wan, right?
Yeah.
Getting to see him make choices, seeing him not just fight, but have conversations with people, and him telling her that she's maybe not doing it right.
Mm-hmm.
I wanted to see a little bit of that Master Padawan relationship
Yeah.
in the sequel trilogy. And I think, it sets up a ton, right? Like, I don't know if it just becomes a much longer, larger story, but I never thought necessarily, okay, they leave and they immediately then have to go fight the First Order and Kylo. I think in my version of it, maybe you'd have to change a little bit more, but they would potentially go on some type of other adventure on the way or something. But yeah, I mean, I guess it could have ended with Luke actually being there instead of force projecting.
Yes. Yeah. Part of me definitely wishes that would have happened like that. That would have been, and he would have had his green lightsaber also.
Yes.
What if he would have had his green lightsaber?
Well, yeah. What if?
My thought immediately went to when I was thinking this time period. My thought somewhat went to what we just talked about, which is, what if Leia would have stayed in the Jedi Order with him?
Ooh, that's a good one.
Tell me you wouldn't want to see that.
Oh yeah.
Like, basically, him and her are the masters, the council. They're maybe it could be more masters, but obviously there probably wouldn't be that soon. Well, what if him and her were the ones that led the next generation of Jedi? And just think about how much they would have been able to complement each other, especially if Ben was coming up. Like, it wouldn't have been just a burden on Luke to train Ben. It would have been both of them. And, both Skywalker twins helping shape their son and nephew, I think, would have made him even more powerful and less likely to be manipulated. I don't know. I think that would have been, or if he did still fall down that path, Ben, how tragic that would have been for them. And I just think, I don't know, or just think how powerful it would have been if Luke and Leia were, again, training all these years together and leading this thing and building this thing up, and then all of a sudden, Palpatine or Snoke, if I don't know if Snoke had a lightsaber, but if he had, killed Leia or something like that, and what that would have meant for Luke and, avenging her, and I don't know, it's just it's all kinds of story possibilities there that I would have loved to see.
Yeah, that is a really interesting one. It makes you wonder when they start the Jedi Temple, their Jedi Order. Yeah, like you said, would Ben have been able to resist the dark side? And even if he didn't, like you said, it sets up this interesting thing where Leia would have felt obviously the same burden Luke had, but more so being his mother
Yeah.
and the teacher, and would she have had to face him on Crate or something, right? If some of the similar story beats happen, do you see her there, or both of them, or Leia tells Luke to, I got this.
Yes.
He goes off with Rey and everybody, and she's the one that has to face him or something. I mean,
oh man,
interesting, like really interesting. And then on the reverse of it all, maybe Ben doesn't feel as abandoned because he had his mother there for his training, and it wasn't like his mom and dad dropped him off and he was sort of alone to do it.
Right.
So yeah, that's a good one. I like that. Man, it makes you think that the Jedi Order would have been a lot stronger.
Yes.
And
which makes you then, think about the repercussions of that. If there was this Jedi Order led by Luke and Leia, the Skywalker twins, and they built up the academy, and by the time we get to episode 7, which is 30 years, that, you had basically hundreds of Jedi out there again, right? Which to me would have had to make Palpatine, maybe rethink his strategy or figure out if he, is still going to go down this road of planet-killing Star Destroyers, or does he build up the Sith Empire again, basically with Dark Warriors and led by his granddaughter, Rey? And what if it was Rey, against Ben, I don't know that, and then of course, maybe she's trying to bring him over to the dark side. Maybe he's trying to, bring her over to the light side, or I don't know, Rey kills Leia, or I don't know. It's just, there's a world of opportunity there that you would just see a lot more light versus dark, I feel like, in that type of setting. So, because you can still utilize Rey, just Rey's a true Palpatine where she's evil.
Yeah, I mean that's a good one, because one of them I had kind of thought of this idea of what if Rey turned to the dark side, but what if she was always on the dark side?
What if she was always, yeah.
That's all a part of sort of that Leia spinoff. I think that's all really interesting. Because, like you said, powerful light, there has to be powerful dark to balance it. So it would have to come from some form of, whether it's still the rule of 2 or multiple Sith or whatever.
Mm-hmm.
I think it would be something different than Snoke, most likely. But yeah, I mean, that's probably one thing that a lot of people would have wanted to see, not trying to rewrite it all, but Palpatine showing up sooner.
Absolutely.
In this new what if scenario.
Yep.
I think would be interesting.
I do too. So there's, I mean, we just talked briefly 20, 30 minutes about it. I think that's a lot of interesting developments that would, alter a lot of the storylines, obviously, of what we see. There's still a lot there that I think would remain the same. You'd still have, probably a Han and Chewie involved the same way. You'd still have, Boba Fett and the Clone Wars and all that stuff that happened. But yeah, there's definitely some repercussions there with the Skywalkers that I think, obviously that's really the main part that we went down as far as the what ifs, but because that does alter the Skywalker saga in a sense. But man, I think we kind of rewrote an interesting alternate timeline.
Yeah, I would want to see those episodes or movies or whatever. Do you think they would ever do Star Wars what ifs? Let's put the caveat that it would be animated. It wouldn't be live action, because they're obviously not going to be able to go back with some of these actors. But
I don't for two reasons. One reason is because I think if you do that, you can easily put it on the thing that it's Legends, right? To make it seem like it's not canon, meaning that if they're doing it canon, they would have to introduce a multiverse, right? This is an alternate universe, which again, like I said in the beginning, that's a whole other conversation.
Yeah.
But I think the main reason they wouldn't do it is the possibility that a lot of fans would love it and be like, this actually should be canon.
Ooh,
You know what I mean?
Yeah.
Because what if Qui-Gon, like they did the whole thing, Qui-Gon survives, and they're like, wait a minute, he should have survived. I like this version of Qui-Gon better than what happened to it. So then you start running into that whole big debate and all this stuff, and I think they would want to really avoid that.
I agree. Well, the rewriting it all. I mean, any what if rewrites it, but I guess like the role reversals still allow some of the similar beats to happen, like the Leia Luke swaps and things like that, or like not that we have to get into any, but like what if Han was force sensitive? What if Finn was the Jedi of the sequel trilogy? I think those kind of scenarios could be possible to be realized. But like you said, I don't know, the multiverse angle of it all. We don't have time to get into that, but
no, we don't. That's a big discussion.
That would break the galaxy.
Yes, it would. But I'd love to hear if anybody wants to get into our Facebook group or just in the comments on YouTube or anything. I'd love to hear your what ifs. We do have a couple great fans, listeners to the show on YouTube that comment a lot. I'd love to hear your thoughts on this what if scenario. What do you think? And we'll talk about those if I remember to read them and get them on here in a timely manner. So that'd be great to get those. See what we can go on that, because I think that's it's fun. It's just fun to think about stuff like that. So let us know. That'd be great. Go check out this season finale of Bad Batch. Come back next week. We'll talk about the finale as well as all the other Star Wars stuff that's happening out there. And then we'll have a little break, it looks like, with some shows until Star Wars Visions kicks up here in September. But there is that Star Wars Mandalorian Galaxy or gallery episode of the making of the finale of season 2, which is the Luke episode. So we'll definitely dive into that when that gets released. I think that's August 25th, I want to say, which I think is a Wednesday. Yeah, August 25th, I think. So thank you, everybody. Thanks always, Cody, for joining me.
Yeah, thanks for having me. What if you didn't? Then you'd be talking to yourself.
That's right. I would be. What if we didn't start this podcast? We wouldn't be talking Star Wars like this.
I know, right?
Right? So glad we started doing this. So thanks, everybody. Have a great weekend, and we'll be back next week to talk all things Star Wars. He's Cody Geiler.
See you, everybody.
I'm David Cottingham. May the Force be with you.